Good day everyone, and welcome to the latest patch for Civ 7 update 1.4.1. This is the first major update we've had after Test of Time, which of course was basically like Civ 7 2.0. And here we've got some new DLC, some new maps, we've got all sorts of new things and reworked governments. Let's get straight into it. Start with a nice simple one here. We've got a new map type, Archipelago. This is of course using their fancy new map generation tech, so you know it's going to be an absolute banger of a map. I continue to maintain that Civ 7 has now got the best map generation in the series, or at least since Civ 5 when I started playing. They've changed a few of the names around as well to try and, I guess, incentivize you to pick the new maps, which is a really good idea because frankly the old maps are a bit of a disaster in terms of immersion. They're super balanced and really perfectly suited for something like multiplayer if you're going after perfect balance, but these new maps are just so much better for a lot of reasons. There's a lot more variety. It's just way better overall, so really keen to see that. Archipelago, of course, has been in the game since launch. It's the classic sort of water map, so keen to try this one out with some leaders like Saida or Blackbeard, potentially. They also mentioned here that while they were tinkering around with this new generation tech, they also took a look at lake generation, which is pretty exciting. So looks like lake's going to generate, as they say, in a much wider variety of shapes and sizes. So, I mean, look, hopefully that's all good, but I just want more lakes in general. There's a lot of civs like Buganda that only really function with lakes, and there are some maps you get where there just aren't any lakes on the map at all, like not a single one. So I hope this results in more lakes just in general, and it can open up what is actually a really powerful civ. Like, Buganda's got some serious sauce going for it. Like, it's a really powerful civ. It's just often overlooked because of the extreme lake dependency, so I would really be keen for that civ to get a look in. It's hard to evaluate when, frankly, I don't think I've ever actually played them, so keen to try that. And here we have the long-awaited Hotseat Multiplayer. I mean, who hasn't been waiting for this, right? I'm expecting the player count to absolutely skyrocket now that they've added this to the game. After all, every single comment, every time Firaxis posts any sort of video, all the comments are just screaming, crying out for Hotseat Multiplayer, and I can't wait for both of those people to get this feature finally. Now we've got that out of the way, let's talk about some pretty good stuff we got coming here, which is the reworks to happiness, government, and celebrations. So there are now 5 different stages of happiness you can have in your city. It's no longer just unhappy when you get a bunch of penalties, or happy where you basically get no bonuses at all. Now you have these 5 stages, so you can see here or down here. Here are the thresholds you got to meet here. Or ecstatic, joyous, happy, unhappy, and angry. They talk about a little bit further below, but these don't actually do anything intrinsically, which I do find a little bit weird. I was kind of expecting ecstatic and joyous, for example, to give 10% yields and 5% yields respectively, a bit like amenities in Civ 6. But right now, there's actually no intrinsic benefit to being ecstatic, for example. As long as you're above 0 happiness, that's probably all you really care about, but we'll talk a little bit about this more down below in the government section. They also touch on celebrations here, and the most important takeaway is that the default celebration length has gone from 10 to 6. And they've also talked a bit here about how they've tried to make these harder to just continually chain. They've made quite a few changes to happiness since the game's launch, and seemingly no matter what they do, they can't make it not the easiest thing in the world to just constantly be celebrating. So they've done another balance pass here. They've now talking about potentially it's just, the happiness focused leaders. They might be able to change celebrations, but everyone else has got to work for it a bit more. I don't even really tend to build happiness buildings ever, and I can change celebrations pretty comfortably. So I do hope this makes it more of a mechanic. But interestingly, they do talk as well about celebration duration. This is one of their goals for the patch, was to make celebration duration not a negative. Like Jose Rizal's ability to have 50% more celebration duration is kind of a downside. I don't really see how this has achieved that. I mean, in theory, if you're getting more celebrations now, in theory, if you're chaining your celebrations back to back, this is still just as bad, right? Like if you get the 50% increase, you go up to celebrating every 9 turns, you're still getting less policy slots than you would be. I'm not entirely sure how that's achieved that goal, but I can kind of see that if celebrations do become really hard to get, then there is, in theory, some benefit to the duration because, if you weren't going to be celebrating anyway, then it keeps you in that celebration longer while you're still accumulating happiness in the background. But I think this is a little bit strange. I'm keen to see how this plays out. Ultimately, we have to see what the balance on this is going to be, and there's no real specific technical details in here, so I'll have to just wait and see what we play. We've got some changes to the crises in here, but they aren't exactly sweeping changes. All they really talk about here is that it's definitely still on their radar, so they're gonna, have further changes. Hopefully this is something we might see in the next patch. They talk a bit about the collapse mode, so we've got regroup and continuity at the moment. Regroup kind of in the middle. Collapse would be, your empire really falls apart during the crisis in theory. over the age transition. Continuity's on the other side of that metric. So I'm kind of curious to see how that feels, but I'm probably still going to stick to regroup. I think it's how the game was sort of meant to be played, but I'll definitely try collapse a few times. I mean, ultimately, if it's done in a really interesting way, then I'll be keen to try it out. But the big actual change for this patch that we got here is in this third paragraph, which I find quite odd. And it's that they say one crisis in particular was creating more friction than meaningful gameplay. And you're thinking, well, obviously, that's the plague crisis, right? Like, no one likes the plague crisis. Not a single person I've seen defend that crisis. Nope, it's the revolutions crisis from the exploration age, which I thought was by far the best one. Like, of all the crises, I thought that one was seriously interesting. Like, the barbarian invasion one was pretty good. I kind of see what they were going for there, and it does add a fair bit of tension, but I think the revolutions one was probably my favorite. Like, you get all of those unique government types coming out of it that you don't see anywhere else in the game. It introduces the loyalty mechanic back, so if your settlements are unhappy, then, other civs can claim them potentially if they revolt for too long. I thought this one was by far the best, so I'm really I'm shocked that this is the one they chose to remove, because I thought it was the best one by far. Yeah, really odd. Not sure what to say about that, but I guess there's one less crisis in the game. It's one less box you gotta untick if you're just turning off all the crises every game. And funnily enough, this now makes it more likely for the plague crisis to appear in the exploration age, so I struggle to see how this is a net win, but alright. Coming alongside this patch as well, of course, is the Brush and Blade DLC. So now the first part of this is coming with this patch, which includes 1 leader, 2 civs, and a few wonders as well. I will take a little bit of time here to talk about the leaders, or the leader in this case, because we only know what one does so far, but Hideyoshi here, he's got quite an interesting ability. So another militaristic leader, which of course, grown. I get that it's by far the best part of the game in a lot of ways. Like, from an objective point of view, I understand that military is sort of the most well received across the board. Everyone, likes commanders. There's been a fantastic addition to the game for sure. But man, it sucks to see another military leader. Another military leader. Since the game's launch, every single leader they've added, except for Ada Lovelace, has had the military tag. Every single one, except Ada. So it's getting a little bit ridiculous now, so I really hope that the second leader that comes with this DLC pack isn't focused on domination. It's just getting a little bit old that every single leader they add, you just have to play them as a military leader again. And it kind of warps. I saw someone bring this up on Reddit the other day. It warps even if you're playing peacefully yourself, if you're surrounded by AI every single game that are all military leaders, it just means every game, even if you try to be peaceful, ends up being a war game because they declare war on you. So I do think this is starting to get a little bit ridiculous, and it is warping the game to what I would call an extreme extent. But I guess, being at war the whole game is one way to keep people busy. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but it's getting a bit much. In saying all that, this guy does have a cool ability. So, props to Firaxis for not just doing another, +5 combat strength with a condition leader. This one's slightly more interesting. And it's interesting as well because it's very simple. Land units deal double damage. It's interesting that they just say increased damage. I'm just about certain from the preview video it's double damage, right? So your land units deal double damage and they take double damage when they get attacked. So quite a glass cannon civ. Your units heal additional health while on a culture building or wonder, and increase production towards culture buildings increased further in season not founded by you. So interesting to note that it just says heal additional HP while on a culture building or wonder. So this presumably means enemies' culture buildings and wonders as well. So even if you're invading someone else, if you can position yourself to be on culture buildings or wonders, then you're going to heal up a little bit faster, even in enemy territory, which is pretty cool if that's how it works. But they're a little bit iffy on the wording sometimes. So you can never be quite sure with Civ 7 if abilities are going to do exactly and literally what they say, because it often is not the case, but hopefully that is the case here. Next up, we have the Antiquity Age path for Japan here, and this is pretty cool. This is what I'm most looking forward to. It's a bit of a peaceful civ. It's a cultural civ as well, and it plays around with appeal, which they've tried to lean into a bit more in the recent updates. Overall, I'm not going to go into too much depth on these because there's not as much depth actually in the patch notes here. You've got to go to the game guides to read that. But look, overall, they're all about breathtaking tiles. They're all about appeal. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they're going to be specifically extremely good if you play them in Antiquity and then bring them into the Exploration Age and then do a syncretism with the Ming Great Wall, and then build great walls all over your empire, just in growing towns, keep your towns as growing. And, their ability here is that they get further increased culture on improvements on breathtaking tiles. So I'm calling it now. Heian Japan in the exploration age as Green Xerxes with the Ming Great Wall. That's going to be a lot of culture. They don't have any numbers here, but I think it's going to be a ridiculous amount of culture. I'm going to say it's +2, I assume. Now, there's still no easy way to manipulate the appeal on breathtaking tiles other than this new wonder they've got here. So Hudo. Wonders provide increased appeal to adjacent tiles. This is a really cool wonder, and right now there isn't any way to actually manipulate appeal other than this wonder. So there's no buildings, for common civs that can actually do this. So they're the only one right now, which is pretty cool, but I also do think that's probably something every civ should get. Either way, this is a really cool civ, and I'm keen to try them out. Next up, we have Sengoku Japan, who is far and away going to be the best pairing for the new leader. Sengoku Japan is just War the Civ, which again, it's another military civ, but that's okay. That's all right. It does pair quite well, and it's a fan favorite civ. Obviously, making like a Japanese civ in a civ game is just printing free money, or making Japanese anything is just printing free money in games. So here you go. So they're quite interesting. Increase culture and science per point of Army Commander XP earned. But your science and culture buildings receive no adjacencies, or at least not the standard ones, right? So they can still get adjacencies from wonders, but culture buildings no longer receive adjacencies with mountains, science buildings no longer receive adjacencies with resources. So basically you just throw your city planning out the door and you just go to war. It doesn't matter, the terrible AI cities you take, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where they put their buildings, you're going to make use of them. Keen to see what the numbers are on this, because this could be absolutely insane. Also note that in the exploration age, which is their apex age, you get influence as well as culture and science from the commander experience you earn. So yeah, look, very simple game plan on Sengoku Japan here. As I said, they're going to pair really well with the new leader who just wants to be at war all the time. It's a little bit one note in that sense, but I can almost appreciate just how one note this civilization is. It's a little bit like Persia in antiquity, where they just have a very simple game plan. So yeah, that is the exploration era Japan. So we've now got the full line of Japan through antiquity, exploration to modern. It's a very strange line. So if you followed that path, in theory, you'd have a, really peaceful civ that's all about breathtaking tiles and improving your towns, straight into Sengoku Japan, who says, screw all that, we go to war for the entire age from turn 1 till the end. And then you go to Meiji Japan, who suddenly really cares about science again and, wants to overbuild stuff, which I guess there's a little bit of finesse there actually, because it doesn't matter where you put your buildings so much as Sengoku Japan, and then you go into, the Meiji Restoration period, and suddenly you want to overbuild everything because everything's in like the worst spot imaginable. So I see the vision. I see the vision of what they've done there, and I really like that. I think that's really clean, actually. It's a strange path, but I really like that Sengoku to Meiji transition. Pretty cool. And it's kind of, interesting that this comes right after the Test of Time update, which obviously was almost in theory, they could have taken this opportunity to distance themselves from the idea that each civ would have one of these sort of paths throughout history that they would transition through. But I gotta respect it. I mean, as I said, adding Japan and, eventually Korea with the next patch is, it's just free money. It's free real estate, so it's fair enough. But yeah, those are the two new civs. Here's the rest of Sengoku Japan's text here, by the way, if you want to give it a read. I might go ahead and zoom in a bit as well. Sorry if it was too small before, and there's no dark mode on this either. That's very easily, this is how they give me the patch notes. This is what we've got. Apologies. These are the new wonders as well, if you want to give them a read. They look pretty cool. Obviously, Civ 7 looks amazing. The landscapes are incredible. So keen to see what these look like in-game. I will say as well, this modern age wonder here, the Nirayama Reverberatory Furnace, or Reverberatory Furnace. This is like it's almost like Ruhr Valley, from previous Civ games. It's not so much about production as it is science, but I kind of like the whole playing around mines thing, so it reminds me of Ruhr Valley in that sense. Either way, it looks pretty cool from the video, so keen to see that. Keen to try it out as well. And you can see some of the new wonders here, so here's what they look like. Incredible. It's just such a good looking game. Okay, onto the gameplay stuff. This is the meat and potatoes of the patch, right? And there's straight away quite a big one here for the age transition. Now, when you're playing Regroup, so in addition to 20 boats you rotate with fleet commanders, you keep one additional boat for each harbour in your empire. Now, they kind of throw a bit of red herring here, talking about fleet commanders. I think this is a pretty impactful patch for the Antiquity Age. I assume this applies to that. So now you can keep boats from age to age on Regroup by just building harbors, which is a really big change for me personally, but all the Regroup players out there. It's kind of, the game has disincentivized you quite heavily from playing a naval civ in the Antiquity Age because your entire fleet just gets wiped out on the age transition, right? Whereas it's, you know, your land units have army commanders, so they can stick around. This is a really clean way of doing it, I think. So if you do have lots of harbors, you can keep X amount of units around. I think that's super clean, a really good change, I think. And just, it's solidified that I will basically never have to play continuity again. That was the only reason you would ever play continuity, in my mind at least. I know this is apparently an unpopular opinion, but playing naval civs was the only reason continuity kind of did it for me. Now I never have to see that mode again, so that's fantastic. Really, really big change and really cool for all the Regroup gang out there. Some interesting stuff here for the environment. So the amount of population buildings in Antiquity and some exploration civs has been reduced. They've also changed a few things around on a per civ basis. So this isn't anything to do with, you know, gameplay per se. This is purely a visual change in terms of like the city sprawl and that kind of thing, and how many of those little extra buildings you have around a district and a quarter when you do that. So kind of interested to see what that looks like. I wonder how noticeable this will be. Could be interesting. I also talk here about Antiquity layouts are made to be more haphazard, while Exploration and Modern are more structured and grid-like. Interested to see what that looks like in the Modern Age, because the Modern Age is already pretty grey, pretty rigid. There's a lot of roads everywhere. It doesn't look quite as nice as the Antiquity Age, unless you really zoom in. But either way, I'm keen to see how this all sort of looks. Okay, and here we get down to the government. So there's going to be a lot of detail in here. I'm just going to pick a few examples and pick out a few interesting governments as well to sort of highlight the changes here. So this is how happiness now intersects with the governments. So Classical Republic, for example, in the Antiquity Age, you now have a passive on your government. So even if you're not in a celebration, if you pick the Classical Republic government, you get this, you know, passive benefit. +1 culture in happy or happier settlements, and +4 additional culture in joyous or happier cities. Now, this is like some of the most confusing, bizarre wording I've ever seen. This should kind of be rewritten to say +1 culture in happy settlements. This is increased to +5 culture in joyous settlements. Now, with that in mind, you're saying daily. It doesn't say settlements, it says cities. But in the preview video, the guy presenting from Firaxis said settlements. So is this cities? Is this settlements? It's going to be a toss-up. We're going to find out in, 5 minutes when your game finishes patching and you get to play. So, the wording on this is really dodgy. I think we all kind of get what it's going for. It's just really unclear about how it went about saying it. So anyway, that's the passive. The celebration option here, so we've got new options for all of the governments as far as I know. The first option here is just 100 influence, and that's it. I find it strange that one of their goals for this patch was allegedly to get rid of what they, called boring government bonuses and celebration effects. But the very first one they highlight here is just his 100 influence, and that's it. It's not like it's that weak. It's kind of pretty strong, actually, if you get it early. I mean, that's almost, over halfway to getting a city-state befriended. But I mean, this is just so boring, right? What are they doing with this one? Anyway, celebration option 2 is a bit more interesting. +10% production towards wonders, or 20% in joyous or happier cities while you're celebrating. Again, you can see it used to be 15%. They've kind of made this a little more granular and made happiness more important. So that's pretty cool overall. The other new thing you get with governments now is unique traditions specific to each government type. So again, Classical Republic, you can only get these traditions if you pick Classical Republic. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this, but +2 happiness on wonders, unlocked on citizenship, and this other tradition here, +1 culture on displayed great works in joyous settlements, or +2 in ecstatic settlements, unlocked on philosophy. So every government has got this same sort of layout here. Some of them make use of happiness more than others. So you can see despotism, the sort of, more war-focused one, doesn't actually involve happiness at all, which is quite interesting. They actually make this this is probably one of the cooler ones. Unhappiness now causes -3% reduction in yields instead of 5% for every point, that's a pretty cool change. Encourages you to go to war, and even if you go over your settlement limit like a ton and become unhappy, you don't get punished as much. So yeah, there's a lot in here. These are all the governments that are being added. These are all the new ones. There's a lot here. What I'm curious about is what happens if you play France? If you play France, can't you pick every single one of these governments and then potentially, can you take every single tradition with you? How is that going to work? I'm quite curious. I don't think they talk about it here. So keen to see how that looks in practice. We also have Mexico here. They do touch on them. And they've got also, they are kind of like this. They've got all these unique governments. France picks from all of them. Mexico, has their own special ones. Really fun civ. And they've got some new celebrations here as well, which is really cool. So glad to see they didn't, leave Mexico out, which they definitely could have done. Yeah, really cool. Really excited for these government changes. I think overall they're still, I don't think they're like that much more exciting than the old ones, if I'm being completely honest. I think they are incrementally better, and I like that they intersect with happiness. That's really cool. But overall, I wasn't particularly wowed by a lot of these, if I'm being honest. So it's better than it was, which is kind of the tagline for Civ 7 in a lot of ways, unfortunately. But keen to try them out. They might be more fun in practice, so let's just see how we go. Shouldn't be too critical reading them as text on a screen here, right? The other, there's a few changes in here, but then none of them are particularly as impactful. I just sort of scrolled past. If you're wondering, I just skipped over a few pages. But I want to talk here about the city details panel. So a major revamp, they're calling it. I hope it's major. And we saw a little preview of this in the video, but now displays settlements a city is connected to. This is insane. I hope this is when again they keep it's hard enough for me, the player, to stop saying cities instead of settlements, but even they keep repeatedly throughout these patch notes saying city. I'm pretty sure they mean settlement, because I would hope you can see connections from towns as well. Really excited for that. That's a big change, particularly for console players who haven't had mod functionality. I think you get this with City Hall. Really keen for that. I don't think there's anything shameful about Firaxis just copying the homework of the modders and adding it into the base game. I think that is personally perfectly reasonable. The other thing they talk about here is that the panel now displays how much food would be sent to each listed city if you were to set a town focus again. A really good change is to see where your food is going to flow when you do make these changes. The more information you can give the player, the better, in this case, because up until this point, we're, 18 months into the launch of the game just about, and you haven't been able to see what's connected to what. So you set your city, a lot of people, I would imagine, I think this happens a lot in my games too. I probably have like a third of my empire's towns sending food to nowhere. If I had to guess, it's probably about a third just aren't connected to anything. Now, yes, you can go into like a menu and then a sub menu and then another sub menu to see where your food is flowing, but it's really clunky. It should never have been that way, so glad to see they've updated that. That is a really big change. So updates to the minor powers tab, which got a lot of love last time. Again, just copied a mod straight up, the city-state mod, whatever it was, that showed that their types in the menu. They've gone even further again, so great to see. It now shows which bonus was picked, which again should have been at launch, but better late than never. And it now tells you who's befriending them and who's gonna win the race to suzerainty. Still nothing about liberating independence, but I'm sure we'll get there one day. Otherwise, we've got a little bit of quality of life here for your unique quarter. So I guess the game's now really gonna try to tell you, like, hey, you're about to place your unique buildings separately. Are you sure you want to be doing that when you're placing it? So that's nice. Otherwise, the rest of this stuff is just really, the nice sort of polish you get here and there. So anyway, that's the patch. So look, it's actually pretty substantial. I think I'm most excited as always for these little quality of life changes. It's a shame there's nothing in here on the resource screen. I still think the resource screen in Civ 7 is just an abomination right now. I'm sorry, it really is just so hard to use. It's just painful every time I have to open up that menu. If you want to do the economic victory, it's just an absolute nightmare to have to go in there like every couple turns and swap things around. It is really awful. So I really hope that is like the focus of their next patch, because I'm not sure how much longer I can go on with this. I've been really tempted to just make a mod myself that is just like an assign all button, where you just say, I don't care where they go, just throw all of my resources to the best of your ability in all of my settlements. That would honestly like change the game for me, because I don't really care about micromanaging like 1 or 2 food, or is there a rail station here? Is this crabs with more warehouse buildings? I don't really care about that. Turn 60 of the modern age where I'm making 1,000 food. So anyway, I think the quickest thing they could do is honestly just add an assign all button. That would be a fantastic band-aid fix in my view, but that's, I can't go a video without talking about the resource screen. So there you go. But that's the patch. Either way, that was a lot of negative stuff at the end, but I'm really excited for update 1.4.1. Real excited for all you guys to play it. Keep in mind that up until this point, if you did buy the complete collection or the Founders Edition, whatever it was that gave you the DLC, This will be the first DLC since launch that you'll have to pay for, so this is no longer included. We're in the, everyone's on the same playing field here. So yeah, just something to keep in mind if you've been getting used to getting all the DLC for free up until this point, which we have been for a while. That's everything from me. So what do you think of this patch? Let me know down below, comment your thoughts. What are you still looking forward to in Civ 7? Like, what's missing from the game that you're still waiting for to be added? We've got Hotseat now, so what more could you ask for? But if you like the video, leave a like. And if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure to subscribe. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thank you as always to the channel members who support me month to month, which is Carcius, Interpaladin, Awesome Daisy, Chase Bandy, Tronty Shamal TV, Chris1 Mac, and JLA7. Your support is very much appreciated.